Good afternoon, Committee on Finance will come to order. Today we have two agendas. We have a 1:30 agenda and a 2:30 agenda. First up, it is Senate Bill 2707. We have Budget and Finance.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Craig DeRye, Director of Finance. We'll stand on our testimony with comments and serious operational concerns, and we're available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is UPW.
We'll stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you very much. And then we have testimony from Herd and Department of Human Resources of CCH in opposition, but I don't think they're here or on Zoom. So next up is HGA.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. Congratulations, and members of the committee. Michelle Kurihara-Klein on behalf of the Hawaii Government Employees Association and our Executive Director, Randy Pereira. You should have our written testimony before you very shortly. I apologize that it was not submitted in a timely manner, but we are in very strong support of this measure. This is an alternative to what was previously known as the Public Employees Compensation Appeals Board, which took up issues of appropriate compensation. We feel that this is the appropriate avenue to address compensation issues, and respectfully request your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Any others who want to testify on this bill? If not, questions, members? Representative Kobayashi.
I guess Herd isn't here, so.
Maybe BNF can.
Oh. I don't know if BNF can answer this.
Okay. Oh, have some faith.
Okay. With all faith, it looks like this bill is one of those that might end up in the veto pile. Is there any way of avoiding that? Is there a compromise between what is here and what might be?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's on the veto file either.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, let's go to next bill, Senate Bill 2782, Senate Draft Fund. This is the collective bargaining cost items for Unit 1. First up, it is BNF.
We'll stand on our testimony.
Thank you very much. We have UPW.
We'll stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2783, Senate Draft Fund, House Draft Fund. First up, this is for Unit 2, BNF.
Stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is HGA.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Again, Michelle Kurihara-Klein on behalf of the Hawaii Government Employees Association. I will take an opportunity to thank you for scheduling these bills that we are in strong support of. As noted in our testimony, and with the grace of the chair to be able to testify on all of the bills that pertain to HGEA's unit. We represent 9 different bargaining units, and of all of the units, our Unit 9, which is our registered professional nurses, were able to ratify their successor contract. So therefore, there is only one bill that contains an appropriation, which we defer to the Department of Budget and Finance for the appropriate cost estimates. However, I do want to update the committee that we are very hopeful that we will be able to settle the remainder of our contracts prior to the ending of session this year. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then you will in your testimony, you cover all the HGA units, right?
Yes. So we have one blanket testimony for all of the units.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And BNF, would you like to also have a blanket testimony for all?
Thank you. We have blanket testimony for Senate Bills 2783, 2784, 2785, 2787, 2789, 2794, and 2795. I'm informed that BU 10 has ratified a settlement.
Yeah.
And I think there's a UPW representative here. We will get the governor's message to you by tomorrow.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, any questions on 2783? If not, 2784, we already had blanket testimony from BNF and HTA. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next one, 2785. That is also blanket testimony from BNF and HGA. Any questions? If not, let's move on to Unit 5. This is 2786. This is for HSTA. We have a BNF
Aloha.
testimony. Let me call BNF first.
Sure.
That's for Unit 5. Thank you very much. And then next we have on Zoom, Ms. Laverne Moore with HSTA.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Oso Tui Jr., President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. We strongly support this bill. This measure provides a vehicle to fund a collective bargaining agreement for bargaining Unit 5 upon ratification of new contract. Although bargaining Unit 5 has a contract in place, there are possible upcoming negotiations for possible contract adjustment, extensions, and vehicle bills may be necessary for an agreement is reached requiring an appropriation prior to the end of the legislative session. The Hawaii State Teachers Association, thank you for the opportunity to hear this bill, and we ask for your support. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers? If not, question members? If not, let's move on to the next bill, House Bill 2788. Wait now. 2787, that is for Unit 6. We already had blanket testimony from BNF and HTA. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2788, that's Unit 7. So that is with BNF. Thank you very much. We have UPA on Zoom.
Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing our testimony. This is Debbie Hartman in behalf of University of Hawaii Professional Assembly, Christian Fern, our Executive Director. We stand on our testimony in strong support and appreciate you hearing this bill and moving it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers? Otherwise, questions? If not, let's move on to Senate Bill 2789, that is Unit 8. So Unit 8, again, we have blanket testimony from BNF and HGA. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, 2790, which is Unit 9. As members know, Unit 9 had previously settled and we put in the cost items in the House bill. So what we're planning to do is defer this bill until next week, just to coordinate with the Senate on which vehicle we'll use. So we'll be deferring this bill to next week, Wednesday. Next bill, 2791, this is Unit 10, and congratulations. Looks like UPW just ratified. So BNF director indicated that he will send out a governor's message, but we will give you till next week, Wednesday, to clean up the numbers. And so, take your time, and then we'll make decision on this next week, Wednesday. UPW.
You covered it, so we'll stand on our written testimony, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So members will wait for the governor's message to plug in the numbers for Unit 10. Any questions? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next bill, 2792. This is Unit 11. This is firefighters. So BNF. Okay, thank you supporting and moving this bill along. With that, Hawaii Firefighters Association, Ms. Smith.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing this bill. and we have been assured that the arbitration panel is close to having a arbitrated award handed to us. Hopefully the draft will be ready by next week, and then I guess BNF will be then costing out the items. But thank you for the opportunity to testify. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, 2794. This is for Unit 13. We already had blanket testimony from HGA and BNF. Any questions on that? If not, let's move on to the next one, 2795. This is Unit 14. Again, we had blanket testimony from BNF and HGA. Any questions? If not, the last collective bargaining unit is 15, 2796. We had blanket testimony from BNF and HGA. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3072. First up, it is UTF. Mr. Mizuno on Zoom.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, for hearing this bill. The ETF stands on its written testimony and strong support. It will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. We have any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3289. This is the Hawaii Retirement Savings. First up, it is, let me go in person first, and then we'll take the individuals on Zoom. So we have Mr. Hirai of BNF.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, I'm Craig Uri, Director of Finance. You have our written testimony. We appreciate the intent of this bill, and we have no objections to it.
Thank you very much. And then we have BOIR.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the Committee on Finance, and Eustachio, Director, Department of Labor. You have our written testimony in front of you. Stand in support of the intent of this bill, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is ARP, Ms. Kelly Lopez.
Hello, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the Committee on Finance. I just have to say it is with great pleasure that ARP gets to be here in front of you. Thank you for hearing the bill. We're excited after years of good work, I believe, that's gotten us this far. One being the task force last year, and really just having an opportunity to work with House members, meeting with you folks individually, and definitely supported the Chair Luke. You already know that this bill is important for many, many small business employees, and it'll make a difference to them and their families, and just as importantly to Hawaiian taxpayers. So thank you. We're standing in strong support.
Kelly, you wanna come back because Craig is taking pictures, so act like you're testifying still. Okay. Go ahead. Okay, next up is Gary Simon.
Thank you, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. You have our written testimony and strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Cynthia Takinaka.
Good afternoon,
Good
Chair,
afternoon.
Vice Chair, members of the committee. Good to see you all. First time back here.
Yeah.
Okay, I might be the lone opposition here today. I'm not going to go through my pages of testimony, but just want to note that the House Labor Committee changed the bill from an opt-in. From an opt-out to an opt-in. Our main concern is the spending of the money, because we strongly feel that what the feds have got going for us in the Secure Act and the proposed Secure 2.0 that, 2 days ago got passed in the US House of Representatives. So that's going to the Senate. And we think that once it goes through, which we expect to this year, it'll be a much better program than what this Hawaii State Retirement Program is about. We also think that a better way to go is to educate our citizens, our workers, to save because so many people, including me, are at the retirement age and more to come. So we really feel that having the protections of ERISA in the private sector is much more beneficial to these kinds of retirement programs. For those reasons, we ask that this measure be held, and thank you for allowing us to share our views.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the testifiers in person. Did I miss anyone in person? If not, we're gonna go to the Zoom testifiers. First up, it is DHS.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Joseph Campos, Deputy Director for Department of Human Services. The Department of Human Services supports the intent of this measure, provides comments and defers to the Department of Budget and Finance, Labor and Industrial Relations, Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, and Executive Office on the Aging. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Executive Office on Aging.
Good morning, good afternoon, Chair Luke and Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. Caroline Cuddy-Rao here with the Executive Office on Aging, and we support the intent of Senate Bill 3289 related to the Retirement Savings Program, which allows all workers the opportunity to prepare for their future so that they can live with peace of mind in their retirement years. You know, some of us are fortunate enough to be working and earning enough money to invest in long-term care insurance, or we may have an employer who invests in our retirement program for us. And we just ask and encourage reconsideration of the automatic enrollment, which has been proven to be increased participation, and it's been proven to be a best strategy with our state sponsored retirement savings program. And we defer to Department of Labor and Industrial Relations on the implementation of the program. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Tax Foundation.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika for Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We will stand on our written comments, be available for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Community Lending and Hawaiian Community Assets. Okay, next up is American Council on Life Insurers.
Chair, this is Warren Chikamoto. ACLI is in opposition to this bill, and we stand on our written testimony. I'm available to ask any questions from you and also the committee members.
Thank you very much. Next up is Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Okay, next up it is Eric Abe, Hawaii Primary Care Association.
Hi, Eric Abe with the HPCA. We stand in support of this measure. We just wanted to say that we wanted to thank AARP for their leadership on this issue for the past decade, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Any other testifiers, either on Zoom or in person? If not, questions, members. Representative Peruso.
I have a question for AARP. So I'm wondering if you have the same reservations about the opt-in, it being changed to opt-in rather than opt-out.
You know, we're clear that definitely the preference is to have people be able to opt out, but we understand that the concern relates to perhaps individuals who aren't as good about paying attention to their paychecks and being surprised maybe a month or two out and not paying attention that the money's not in there because they didn't opt out. Our preference, you know, is that, but we're willing to see the program move forward. We believe DLIR will do what it can, especially to put more funds, I hope, into educating, meaning proactively being able to provide information to workers so that they take an affirmative action and really become more engaged in taking care of those issues. Thank you.
Do you anticipate continuing to push for modification of this measure so that the opt-out turns into opt-in? I mean, the other way around.
Sure, whether in the future ARP would be interested in seeing it move to opt-in,
Right.
I mean, opt out instead. I think we definitely would want to see the success of the program. If the program is extremely successful with the incentives or whatever else might be planned, if it's not needed, it's not needed. But if we see that the program isn't as effective, keep in mind, the more effective it is, hopefully the less cost to the state as an ongoing, having to continue to do that. So we're open to seeing what's going on.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Kobayashi.
For AARP again, is the plan workable as is with the opt-in? And are there examples, I mean, in other states, like the 3 other states that have this,
This-
of opt-in versus opt-out and what the difference might be?
This will be the first legislation related to these types of programs where opt-in is what gets approved. So I don't know how that would work. What we're clear about is that it'll take longer for the program to maybe get to a point of being self-sustaining. So again, I think if there's a way to encourage people to sign up, that'd be ideal. If it continues as a opt-in measure. Not sure I answered your question, but.
Well, I mean, is it workable with opt-in?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think having a program that is readily available to people through their employer is the key. And people being able to do that through their payroll. It's better than what they have now, even if it is opt-in.
Thank you. Representative Todd.
I have a question for Mr. Karai, very briefly. I was wondering if you could share if there are any budgetary or tax implications. If this is deferring income, would that potentially reduce tax collections or make these employees better eligible for government assistance?
Not sure exactly. My understanding is it doesn't affect government assistance.
It wouldn't. So it wouldn't affect withholding, that sort of thing. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, 2644. This is relating to electrical contractors. First up in person, it's IBW.
Good afternoon, Chair,
Afternoon.
Vice Chair, and committee. I'm Leroy Chinchi with IBW 1260, and we stand in support of the bill and also available for questions.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers in person. We'll go to Zoom. So first up, it is Contractors Licensing Board.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke. This is Candice Ito. I'm the Executive Officer for the Contractors License Board. The board stands on its written testimony in opposition of this bill. The board appreciated that the HD2 removed the substation work from the exemption and respectfully requests additional clarification on the specific types of high voltage that will be included in the exemption. If you note on page 3 of our testimony, we received clarification on the term hiring call, and so we provided some suggested language for the committee. Thank you. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next up, it's Board of Electricians and Plumbers.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Luke, members of the committee. My name is Leona Green, and I'm the Executive Officer of the Board of Electricians and Plumbers. The board stands on its written testimony in opposition of the bill. They request clarification and additional information on the work to be exempted from licensure and offers amended language. I will be available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Green, does that also include Mr. Lucero's testimony?
Yes, thank you. We apologize. He
Oh,
was
no, it's
unable to
okay.
make it this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Hawaiian Electric, Mr. Michael Swanson.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. My name is Mike Swanson. I'm the Transmission and Distribution Director at Hawaiian Electric, and we are in strong support of Senate Bill 2644 with a request for an amendment to add the word substation back into the bill. As an electric utility serving the state of Hawaii, we must have access to out-of-state journey-level high-voltage workers to support our electric grid that, quite frankly, are not available in the state. There is no bench. The reason for this lack of bench is simple. High voltage workers who work for utility contractors frequently leave Hawaii to find other work once the work is no longer available in Hawaii. Their skills are in high demand throughout the nation. This law has been on the books for 9 years, and in those 9 years, the local unions have been unable to provide local qualified high voltage workers. Hawaiian Electric prefers to hire local, and our local labor and we are open to working with the IBEW to find ways to grow the local talent pool. High voltage work is one of the top 10 most dangerous professions. Specialized training is required to work in high voltage environments. No disrespect to electricians with an EJ license, but simply requiring a licensed contractor in the state of Hawaii to ensure their employees have a state of Hawaii EJ electrician's license where high voltage is touched on in their training is not sufficient to work at an electric utility. Due to the specialized substation work, we are respectfully requesting the high voltage substation work remain part of Senate Bill 2644. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in this matter and your consideration regarding the substation work.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Anyone wishing to testify either on Zoom or in person? If not, questions, members? If not, let's move on to the next bill, House Bill 3126.
Chair, I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, go ahead,
Sorry,
Representative Peruso.
I'm just not sure who to direct it to, and I guess I'll direct it to IBEW. And I recognize that there are two different units that are submitting testimony, so I'll just ask you, sir, if you could answer. If you could come forward. So you have IBEW 1186 testifying in opposition, and then IBEW 1260 testifying in support.
Yeah.
So can you explain that to me?
Sure. Again, like mind if I keep this up?
No, go ahead.
You know, for the last 9 years, we had this on the books. I mean, I think somebody got to come up with a plan to make sure that we got local people doing this work. And we partnered with Hawaiian Electric to say, like Mike Swanson said, is we got to get local people doing this work. So let's start with training program where we can start building the local workforce to do this. And that's the plan we get moving forward is we making one commitment to say this is a long-term thing. We got to start training our local guys to be part of this renewable future. We got to build the skills in-house so that we can take care of our own areas. And that's the plan we get moving forward. That's why we support it.
Okay, so you're from 1260, and so you support it. Can you explain then why IBEW 1186?
You would have to ask them.
I mean, I'm reading their testimony. Yeah, okay, thank you. I think I understand.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3126. First up, it is DLIR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Committee of Finance. Annie Stockfield, Director, Department of Labor. Thank you, Chair, for hearing this very important administrative bill. You have our testimony in front of you. I stand on our written testimony. It's very important for the department to move forward with this initiative. And thank you for allowing me to testify. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Hawaiian Electric on Zoom.
Hi, my name's Simon Powell. I'm from Hawaiian Electric. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm testifying on behalf of Hawaiian Electric in strong support of SB 3126. This bill helps to clarify by statute the ability of the Director of DLIR to allow owner-user inspection organizations to perform inspections of boilers and pressure vessels. This would align Hawaii revised statutes with the administrative rules. Hawaiian Electric's been owner-user inspection organization since 1998, authorized by the National Board and the state of Hawaii. And we employ National Board Commission boiler and pressure vessel inspectors to perform our boiler and pressure vessel inspections. Our inspectors are qualified to the same standards as insurance inspectors and jurisdictional inspectors. One major difference is insurance and jurisdictional inspectors are scheduled ahead of time and can only perform a snapshot in time. Our company inspectors are regularly on site, readily available for inspections and consultations, and work very closely with our maintenance and operation crews to improve Hawaiian Electric ability to serve our customers. Loss of Hawaiian Electric's authorization as an owner-user inspection organization would result in increased costs to the company, increased risk to our generated assets because it will take longer to repair our assets, and increased workload for the Hawaii State Boiler and Elevator Inspection Branch. We also support the extension of time to reimburse the general fund, as failure to do so could necessitate fee increases for boiler and elevator branch customers, and these fee increases would then be passed on to the end users. Accordingly, Hawaiian Electric strongly supports this bill, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Next up is FAR Hawaii, Mark Inoue.
Hello, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. I'm Mark Inoue, testifying on behalf of FAR Hawaii in strong support of Senate Bill 3126. As the only refinery operator operating in the state of Hawaii, we believe in the safety and operational integrity of our refining and logistics operations for the sake of our employees and our community. Our refinery has operated an owner-user inspection organization, or the OUIO, since 1998. After meeting certification and qualification requirements and through the oversight of the DLIR director. Our inspection supervisor has maintained our OUIO and the operations of our pressure retaining items and boilers, and this measure will align administrative rules and statutes. It also gives FAR Hawaii the ability to staff the OUIO with an optimal number of inspectors to perform all required inspections to ensure our refinery can operate safely 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without any disruptions. For these reasons, we ask for your favorable support for this measure, and thank you very much for allowing us to testify. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Anyone else wishing to testify in person or on Zoom? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2764. House Draft 2. First up, it is DLNR. Mr. King. Go ahead.
So good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, committee members. Michael Kane on behalf of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony in support of this bill. And if I could add, we've had a chance to review the public testimony and know that there have been many requests to include language concerning traditional aquaculture and fish pond restoration. These proposals are consistent with DLNR's Ho'ala Loco Ia program. And if they are added, DLNR would also be able to support the proposed amendments. I stand by for questions.
Thank you. Okay, next up it is Trisha Watson.
Hi, everybody in person. That's exciting. Trisha Keholani Watson. I'm here on behalf of Aina Momona. We're a nonprofit organization based on Molokai. I'm here on behalf of our executive director, Walter Riddy. I don't know if I'm supposed to take this.
No, it's
okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do anymore at this building. As Michael just said, we were part of the Ho'ala Loco Ia program. We worked for 4 years with OCCL to create a streamlined program for traditional Hawaiian fish ponds. Despite that and our very long efforts, we have been tangled up in this law. I will tell you, I've been personally asked to take down some of our rock wall structures. So it's why we felt like this amendment to this particular measure was necessary to make sure that we're able to conduct traditional and customary practices that we believe shouldn't have been caught up in this anyway, but we have found that the protections afforded under Article 12, Section 7 haven't necessarily been implemented well when looking at this law. So we have proposed amendments. We realize we're a little late to the party, but this has sort of evolved quickly and we would very much appreciate your consideration. I am here in person to answer any questions. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other persons who want to testify in person? Otherwise, we'll go Zoom. Okay, if not, first up it is Office of Planning.
Afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. I am Mary Alice Evans, the Director of the Office of Planning. We are in support of the bill that expands some of the exclusions from this section of the law. We do have one recommendation, and that is that the bill keep the current floor area threshold at its current level. Reducing it for non-shoreline parcels is really a county matter. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next up, it's Department of Transportation.
Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and honorable members of the committee, the DOT is in support of the measure. In the interest of time, we would like to stand on our written testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is Department of Planning, County of Maui.
Chair, this is Jordan Hart on behalf of the Department of Planning, County of Maui. We're in support of this measure. We're also aware of the proposed additions relating to aquaculture and fish ponds, and we're supportive of those measures as well. And we really hope that you will pass this forward as something that will really help facilitate state and county agencies to do positive projects in the special management area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii State Association of Counties.
Here, John Okudara for HSAC. HSAC supports Senate Bill 2764, particularly the provision lowering the size exemption from development for single-family residences in the SMA from 7,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet. The counties are responsible for enforcing the policies within the SMA. And with the anticipated changes in sea level and coastal erosion, this would allow the counties to further review changes within that SMA area to allow the county planning authorities to assure that the development in the area conforms to the development guidelines in the SMA. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Anyone else wishing to testify in person or in Zoom? If not, questions, Representative Caruso.
I have a question for Animal Mona. So have you, and I've heard other testifiers also testify in support of the amendments that you're requesting. Do you know if anyone is working with the subject matter chairs to get concurrence?
Yes, we have gone to Chair Tarnas and even Senator Inouye, because we know it was her bill that was introduced. So yes, we have. I'm not sure, I don't have an active update, but I know we have been talking to those offices as well to get their concurrence on the proposed amendments.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2766. First up, it is the Farm Bureau. Oh, or Mr. Cabral.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, members of the committee. I'm Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have a written testimony in support. We just wanted to make clear that the Farm Bureau is not advocating for reclassification of ag land into rural. However, we are supportive of this study, which will look at the rural policies and also possibly reclassify some of our marginal ag lands into rural, which can serve as an interface or a buffer between ag and urban, where in the rural district, ag is an option. So it may address some of the fake farm, gentleman farm, lifestyle farm challenges that we're currently seeing in the agricultural district. So again, we are supportive of the study, but we are not actively advocating for reclassifying ag lands. We are very protective of our ag lands, especially our most productive ag lands. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is the Land Use Commission. If not, we have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Rodney Funakoshi from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. OPSD stands on its testimony in strong support and with recommendation for an appropriation amount to undertake the study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Department of Agriculture.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geiser, Chairperson. We stand on our written testimony, but we support the measure and we look forward to assisting the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development in undertaking this important study. We're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testifiers, either in Zoom or in person? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2056. First up, it is the Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Thank you very much. On Zoom, we have Office of Planning.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Rodney Funakoshi. The Office of Planning and Sustainable Development stands on its testimony in strong support of this study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, Chair. The department stands on its written testimony in support, and we defer to OP Sustainable Development. We're here to answer questions.
Thank you. Lastly, Hawaii Farmers Union United. Okay, any other testifiers, either on Zoom or in person? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3027. We have DNR. Mr. Kane? 3027.
DNR stands on our testimony.
Thank you very much. On Zoom, we have University of Hawaii.
Aloha, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Dolan Eversole representing the University of Hawaii. We will stand on our written testimony in support and concept. I do want to highlight one recent change to our prior testimony, which is item number 6 in our written testimony. And that's simply to consider the inclusion and recognition of the value of coastal dunes in such an assessment. And rather than just doing a beach assessment, we feel that it would be equally important to also assess the coastal dune system. So we have some suggested amendments to, if you would consider, suggested amendments to the bill just to highlight that fact for the value of coastal dune systems as well. Otherwise, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Next up, it's Office of Planning.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Mary Alice Evans for Office of Planning. We appreciate the intent of the measure and offer comments. This would be a significant undertaking. We have been working at this kind of an assessment in various studies in the very recent time. But should the legislature wish to move this forward, we think it would require appropriate funding. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Anyone wishing to testify either in person or on Zoom? Not questions. Representative Martin.
I have a question for Dolan Eversole. I wonder, you mentioned the beach dune restoration. Would that fall under your office if that was in front of a city beach park? Or would that be with the city? Sorry, it's just a jurisdictional question for a project.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, as a representative and a faculty member of the University of Hawaii, wouldn't we would have an interest in what happens there, but have no regulatory role. I think the answer, what you might be looking for, is it, I believe it would fall under state conservation land. So that would be under the DLNR and fall under their jurisdiction. However, I do have to highlight the complex nature to the coastal dune. When we talk about coastal dunes, it typically bifurcates the state and county jurisdiction right down the middle. So half of the dune typically would fall under county jurisdiction, and the seaward half of the dune typically would fall under state jurisdiction. So further complicating those measures, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill. Senate, Representative Kobayashi.
For UH again, I'm not sure that the amendment is needed to add coastal dune system. I mean, beach and shoreline seems to cover a lot of territory in an undefined manner.
Yes, that's a good point. I guess depending on your interpretation or definition of beach and shoreline, I think for most people that would include the coastal dune, but just for clarification, I think highlighting coastal dune systems and the assessment would include that. Wouldn't hurt, but you bring up a good point, which is it may not be necessary in that, depending on your interpretation, it could be considered in the current language as well.
I mean, the problem that I see is that definitions would be helpful, including a definition for coastal dune system.
That's right. And as an example of that, the County of Maui actually has built into their ordinances and rules a specific definition of what a coastal dune is. So they're one of the few counties in the state that actually do define what a coastal dune is. Other than generic definitions by statute, there isn't really a specific geographic designation or definition of a coastal dune, but that's a whole different issue altogether.
I mean, we've been dealing with this issue for years in Kahala, where Naupaka encroaches upon sand, and we've seen that there has been erosion because the sand dune system, or the sand piling up system, has been disappearing. But I don't think that's what I would consider a coastal dune. I mean, we're talking about, sand in terms of just a few yards high.
Correct. Yeah, I'm familiar with that Kahala example, and I don't know that I would define that as an intact coastal dune either. I think you're correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Thank you, Representative Caruso.
Quick question again for Mr. Eversole. So what I hear you advocating in your testimony is the further development of regional plans, somewhat similar to what the North Shore Working Group, Resilience Working Group has been working on, or so is that correct, that you would caution us against trying to develop a statewide plan until we've done more specific regional plans?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, correct, that to try to implement a statewide beach assessment would be a huge task. I think we heard something similar from Office of Planning as well. This is a major endeavor, and perhaps an intermediate or an interim measure could be to develop a pilot regional plan. And one example that we point to in our testimony is the North Shore of Oahu and that Sunset Beach area, which is in desperate need of some form of adaptation planning there. And starting with dune restoration would be, and a beach assessment would be a good start, of course, but to do it statewide would be a multi-year massive effort, regardless of who does it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 573. In-person testimony is ZZ Zhang.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee.
I'm Zhizi Zheng, and I'm representing on behalf of our animal rescue, ROAR Rescue of Animal Rights. I testify in strong support of the measure. It is the burden and responsibility of first responders of an emergency to provide excellent medical care and rehabilitation services to native wildlife and all species. If the existing current structure of emergency response is lacking in providing adequate support, then it is the due diligence of the legislature to facilitate the implementation of a plan as outlined in this measure. The lack of an existing structure of emergency response proves the necessity of this kind of service. It could be advised to the legislature to consider providing emergency support and services to all species, not just indigenous species. Yet, if priority were to be given, indigenous species should be prioritized as native species are more vulnerable. And if I could echo the council member, the vet and rancher representing from the Big Island, implementing a program to provide stellar care to our wildlife is a good plan of action to protect their health and longevity in our ecosystem. If the legislature were to go one step further and to establish medical guidelines to how a plan will operate in emergency situations, it ensures the treatment received is the utmost level of care. I also would like to request if the legislature could consider that it be in the physical interest of the legislature to appropriate funds for the plan outlined in the measure. I echo the testifier from Hawaii Wildlife Center about funding. It is a very specific need, the need for emergency services for native birds, bats, monk seals, and sea turtles. Yet of all the agreements the Wildlife Center has reviewed, they mainly focus on habitat improvements, i.e. planting, and protection strategies, i.e. predator control. So what is outlined in this measure is necessary, and perhaps the appropriation of funds could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, testifiers on Zoom, DNR.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair. My name is Afshin Siddiqui with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony in support of this measure and am available for questions.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers who indicated they will be testifying. Anyone else, either on Zoom or in person? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 204. First up, it is Zizi Zhang.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I testify in support of the measure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. On Zoom, we have DNR.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, committee members. David Sakota for DLNR will stand on our written testimony in full support, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testifier, either on Zoom or in person? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3320. First up, it is Zizi Zhang.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Zhizi Zheng, and testifying again on behalf of our organization, ROAR, Rescue of Animal Rights. As an animal rights activist, I strongly oppose this measure because although I agree pigs are bad for the environment, eradicating a species should not be a viable option. As I've commented before in previous testimonies, because every life matters. The first and foremost reason, though, for eradicating should never be an option is because if policies were drafted to get rid of certain species, it could lead to extinction or loss of an entire animal species. Therefore, it can be concluded eradicating is not a good solution when it comes to enacting effective animal management policies. We as stewards of animals are caregivers, defenders, protectors, and preservers of wildlife. The burden and responsibility is upon the state and governing agencies of wildlife to defend, protect, care for, and preserve all species. There are lots of benefits to managing instead of eradicating. The feral pig species and other animal species, wild birds, game birds, game mammals listed in the Hawaii Revised Statutes 18.3D-61. These species could generate economic benefits, raise awareness for conservation, and learning about these species could become an educational experience for the general public. Instead of eradicating animals, it could be in the physical interest of the legislature to consider creating management measures that favors the coexistence between humans and wildlife. The legislature could also consider the strategy employed by the Australia Zoo, who has removed invasive species to zoological facilities. Thanks for the chance to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up is Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have a written testimony in support. The Farm Bureau is not advocating for the eradication of feral pigs or axis deer or any other birds or game mammals, but we're asking for some control. And we believe this measure just clarifies that on private property, you can eradicate if it's your choice on the private property. But as far as the populations, we are in no way advocating. We support the hunter's ability to hunt for subsistence. But feral pigs, which this bill is addressing, is a really bad problem for our farmers and ranchers. They eat anything and everything. They destroy crops, they destroy our fragile ecosystems, and they can be a public health and safety concern. So again, we are just asking for control of these feral pigs. And we are supportive of a comprehensive game mammal management plan, which address many of the other invasives that are impacting agriculture and our environment. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom is DLNR.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Jason Omick with Division of Forestry and Wildlife, and we stand by our written testimony and support, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers who signed up. Any other testifiers in person or on Zoom? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2398. First up, we have DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ian Hirokawa with DLNR Land Division. The department will stand on its written testimony in support of the measure and be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, it is HCDA.
Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee, apologize. This is Craig Nakamoto for HCDA. Apologize for the late testimony. We stand in support of this bill and just offer one clarifying amendment. Some language, the chairperson of the Board of Land and Natural Resources was, I think, inadvertently added to the bill. So we're suggesting that it be removed. That's on page 6, lines 10 to 11. And just to note, Chair and the committee, we obtained the concurrence of Representative Tarnas, and DLNR is also in concurrence with this one small change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Anyone else wishing to testify either in person or on Zoom? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the last bill, Senate Bill, or not last. Yeah, good try. Senate Bill 1411. The only one who signed up is Shipty.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Alan Danner. I'm the administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division, and the department stands on its written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Any other testifiers, either in person or on Zoom? If not, questions? If not, last bill, Senate Bill 3298. First up, it is DLNR. Nobody from DLNR, okay. If not, Todd Yukutake, Hawaii Firearms Coalition. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Todd Yukutake with the Hawaii Firearms Coalition, and we support SB 3298. Having a full featured range on the Big Island is long overdue. We're glad that there's a mile marker 16 range, but that's I call that a stopgap range. It's mostly for zeroing rifles. What we need is a full featured range to host competitions, to hold classes, to have training, and especially we're going to be having concealed carry be legalized within the next year. So expect we're going to have about 7,000 gun owners on the Big Island. They're going to need practice and training for that. Having a gun range on the Big Island will also draw tourists from overseas and also within state too. We have people that want to go over for training, practice and competitions. There's money to build the range too with the Pittman Robertson Fund. They have a 3-to-1 federal match to local funds. So there's money, just need the planning. I think this work group in this bill will help with that. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next up is Michael Rice.
Hello, I'm Mike Rice, and I stand in support of this bill. Big Island does need a full-fledged gun range for people to practice at in a safe and sane manner. Because right now, other than like a few places that are really only made to, for example, zero rifle, there's nowhere on Big Island other than private property or other than on your private property to practice with a firearm. That only leaves illegal places or such as on other private property or public property, which could cause problems. So I believe Todd did go over most of what I want to talk about and mention it. So I will stand on my written testimony from this point on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Any testifiers either in Zoom or in person? If not, questions? If not, let's recess for decision making. Good afternoon, Committee on Finance will reconvene for decision-making on our 1:30 agenda. First up, it is Senate Bill 2707, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members, we're voting on Senate Bill 2707, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1 as is. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Representative Bronco? Aye. Eli? Excuse, Holt? Aye. Iligan? Aye. Kobayashi? Aye. Martin?
Aye.
Nishimoto? Aye. Russo?
Aye.
Sayama? Aye. Pam?
Aye.
Todd? Aye. Wahlberger?
Aye.
McDermott, excuse. Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2782, Senate Draft Plan. This is for Unit 1, which has already come to an agreement. We will defer this till next week, Wednesday at the end of calendar so that we can work out with the Senate which vehicle will be used and plug in the numbers. So for the rest of the CB items on this page, why don't we take it all at the same time just to save people time and Vice Chair. Okay, so Senate Bill 2783, which is BU2, Senate Bill 2784, which is Unit 3, Senate Bill 2785, Unit 4, Senate Bill 2786, Unit 5, Senate Bill 2787, Unit 6, Senate Bill 2788, Unit 7, and Senate Bill 2789, Unit 8. All those measures will be passed as is, as we're waiting for the negotiations to wrap up. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, members, we're going to be voting on Senate Bill 2783, Senate Draft 1 HD1 through Senate Bill 2789 SD1 HD1 as is. Noting the excused absence of Representative Eli and McDermott for the remainder of this agenda. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Thank you. The next two, Senate Bill 2790, Senate Draft 1, and Senate Bill 2791, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1 for Unit 9 and Unit 10. They have reached, completed the negotiations. We will be waiting for the governor's message for Unit 10, but we already know the amount for Unit 9. We'll be working with the Senate to figure out which vehicles will be used. So it will be deferred to end of agenda Wednesday for 6. For the next 4, we'll group them again. Senate Bill 2792, Senate Bill 2794, which is 13, Senate Bill 2795, 14, and Senate Bill 2796. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Okay. Okay, members, we're voting on Senate Bill 2792 SD1 HD1 through Senate Bill 2796 SD1 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3072, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion?
Chair, I'll be voting in opposition on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Representative Caruso.
Same request.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, members, we're voting on Senate Bill 2794 SD1 HD1 as is. Are there any other no's? I have Representative Caruso and Wahlberger as a no. Any reservations? Any other no's? Adopted.
Next up is Senate Bill 3289, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. This will be deferred until next week, Wednesday. At the end of calendar, we are currently working with ARP and subject matter chair and in consultation with all the departments. With the opt-in language, this will be the first of its nation where the state will provide a matching. So we are working on a matching situation to encourage individuals to sign up. So we're working on that language. So if you can give us some time to work on it, then thank you very much, ARP, for being, agreeing to work with us on kind of a really innovative solution. So with that, next up is Senate Bill 2644, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Representative Peruso.
I'll be voting on this measure.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote as is. No, 2644.
Okay, members, we're voting on Senate Bill 2644 SB2 HD2 as is.
As is.
As is. Noting, are there any reservations? No's? Adopted.
Oh, other than Peruso.
Peruso,
Peruso is a no.
a no, sorry. Got
So
it.
it is to run.
Any other no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3126, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3126 SB2 HD2 as is. Any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Okay, next up is Senate Bill 2764, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. If we could move this to end of agenda tomorrow, only because I need to take a look at the recommendation made by Chair Carnes. I just need to look it up. Next up is Senate Bill 2766, Senate Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HT1, putting an effective date of July 1, 2022, only because this one needs a House draft and I couldn't figure out what to change. And it still has a blank appropriation, so it's not making it effective. So with that, HT1 making it July 1, 2022. Any questions?
No, but Chair, I do have a comment. I concur with LUC that there's a lot happening around IAL, and the LUC has traditionally been the body tasked with this work, and it makes much more sense to me to have them be engaged in this work. So I'm just going to be voting on this measure.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Reservations for me, please, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Reservations for me as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, members voting on Senate Bill 2766, Senate Draft 1 with amendments, knowing the reservations for Representatives Tam and Wildberger and the no vote for Representative Peruso. Are there any other no's or reservations? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2056, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 2056 SD1 HD1 as is. Any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3027, Senate Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as a HD1, adding in appropriation section language and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3027 SD2 with amendments. Any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 573, Senate Draft 1. This will be deferred till next Wednesday and the calendar. Next up is Senate Bill 204, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, members voting on Senate Bill 204, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. As is. Any reservations? Reservation for Representative Wildberger? Any other reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Okay, next up is Senate Bill 3320, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3320, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1, as is. Any reservations or no? Adopted.
Okay, next up is Senate Bill 2398, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. We're reviewing the HCDA amendment, so this will be deferred until next week, Wednesday, and then the calendar. Next up is Senate Bill 1411, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Senate Bill 1411, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, as is. Any reservations? No's? Adopted.
Thank you. Lastly, it's Senate Bill 3298, House Senate Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as the HD1 again, putting an effective date of July 1, 2022, since the amount is blank and we got to put a HD1 on it. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, members voting on Senate Bill 3298 ST1 with amendments. Any reservations or no? Stop.
Thank you. With that, that's the first agenda. Why don't we move on to the second agenda? With that. Okay, first up, it is Senate Bill 514, Senate Draft 1. We have BNF.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. I'm Craig Uri, Director of Finance. Department of Budget and Finance stands in support of this bill, and Budget Administrator Neil Mihir and I are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On Zoom, we have Department of Taxation.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ted Shiraishi for the Department of Taxation, and we stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. Next
Thank
up,
you.
it is Tax Foundation. Can you test your mic again, Tom? Oh, you're coming off very fast. Yeah, coming off fuzzy, or not really fuzzy. I don't want to say fast. Yeah, yeah, it's coming out like sped up.
Like your speed is on too high.
Yeah, Mr. Yamachika, it's still coming up very like muffled and high pitch. I'm not sure what's going on. Sorry about that. Okay, any other? Okay, any other individuals wishing to testify in person or on Zoom? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2475, Senate Draft 2. First up, it is Department of Transportation. Okay, if not, Department of Taxation.
Thank you, Chair. Ted Shiraishi for the Department of Taxation. We stand on our written testimony providing comments.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Tax Foundation. Yeah, it's still not coming up really well. It's muffled and high pitched and very sped up for some reason. Yeah, we can barely hear you. Let me see. Do you have any other things on this? I wonder if you can he get out and come back in and try.
I think this can try.
Okay, he has tried. Oh yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the audio.
Is this any better?
Oh yeah, way better. Oh, what happened? Yay.
Nice.
Yay.
Okay,
Okay, go
I'm on
ahead.
a back. Yes, I'm on a backup microphone. Thank you very much. Yes, as mentioned in our testimony, we think that charging GET on transportation is anomalous because federal transportation charges cannot be taxed. So we are we think it would be a better idea to not tax this stuff. And we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers, either on Zoom or in person? Questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3236. First up, it is Department of Human Services.
Aloha, I'm Judy Moore Peterson, MedQuest Administrator with the Department of Human Services, and we stand on a written testimony. We appreciate the intent, we offer comments, and we request a small amendment. I'm available for any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is Healthcare Association of Hawaii.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Hilton Rathel, President and CEO of the Healthcare Association of Hawaii. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong support of Senate Bill 3236. This measure would provide critical relief funds for the state's nursing homes through a one-time enhanced Medicaid payment, similar to what was instituted in many other states during the pandemic. The pandemic has been extremely difficult for healthcare providers across the state because of increased costs due to labor, supplies, screening, testing, PPE, and other factors. We understand there are many competing priorities for funding. However, we are requesting the support for our nursing homes to provide meaningful relief and to demonstrate that long-term care providers in the state have not been forgotten during these very challenging times. We're also requesting a small amendment, which we've worked with MedQuest on and are in agreement on. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers who signed up. Anyone else wishing to testify either in person or on Zoom? If not, questions, members? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3221. First up, it is DBED.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, committee members, Dennis Ling for DBED. DBED stands in its written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you very much. I'll be able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2731. First up, it is Bishop Museum.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kaiwi from Bishop Museum. We remain so very grateful and humbled by your continued support for our museum. We stand in our written testimony. Here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 915. First up, it is Outrigger Du Kahanamoku Foundation.
Aloha, thank you for having me. I'm Sarah Fairchild. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation, and I'm here to testify in support of SB 915. To sum it up, Duke Kahanamoku was the epitome of a native Hawaiian waterman. I think anyone who grew up in Hawaii or spends some time here knows who Duke is. And for these reasons, a license plate in his honor is merited and I believe will be extremely popular. When the organization held a ceremony for the Duke postage stamp in 2002, that ceremony was attended by the governor, the entire federal congressional delegation from Hawaii, all of the mayors from the state, the US Postmaster General, and about 7,000 people who just showed up. So it's not very often that you see that kind of excitement about a stamp, and I think you'll see that same excitement with this plate. The proceeds generated from this plate would be distributed to ocean safety and swimming programs around the state through our organization. And Hawaii's high drowning rate is a known issue that the legislature has been working on with various initiatives. But this bill would be an easy way to fund more of these programs without having to find more room in the budget. And for these reasons, I hope you will support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2770. First up, it is Community Alliance and Prisons.
Aloha, Chair Luke, and members of the committee, Kat Brady testifying in strong support for this measure, and thank you so much for hearing this bill. when our people were banished to Arizona, it was really kind of interesting because they're in the middle of a desert. And when I went to the other prison, not Saguaro, but the one next to it, the guys had painted this beautiful mural of Hawaiian beaches in their dining area. And I thought, people are really trying to connect. They're trying to remember home. So this is really important. Most of the people in our system are Native Hawaiian, and we need to actually do things that resonate with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is on Zoom, Department of Public Safety.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Max Latani, Department of Public Safety. We would stand on our written testimony in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up it is Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. Okay, next up it's Women's Prison Project, Linda Rich.
Yes, thank you, Chair Luke and Vice Chair Yamashita. We also are in strong support of this bill, and we would note that when programs are based in Hawaiian culture, customs, traditions, and values, they're more effective in engaging Native Hawaiian participants, who are a large percentage in our system. And also that these programs, the few that exist, have proven to be really transformational for the participants. I was at the IVAC conference just a couple of days ago and went to a presentation by Kumuhula Ka'ulakukui, who has a halau inside the women's prison. And some of her haumana, who are now out, talked about how they learned responsibility, discipline, respect, cooperation, and to reconnect with community. So we strongly encourage the passing of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next is Alicia Kalui-Okalani.
Aloha, representatives. I am speaking on behalf of SB 2770 because of being part of the prison system, Kanakamoli, Native Hawaiian. I stand before you today with my AA degree in Hawaiian Studies, a bachelor's. I'm working on my bachelor's in social work right now at the UH Manoa. And as you know, 50% of the women that are incarcerated are Native Hawaiian. And I shared this with you because I have dealt with a lot of the trauma that we have gone through as Kanakamoli, and colonization and being stripped of our land and natural resources. But the one thing that I learned inside was that Western medicine or cognitive behavior therapy or any of Western treatment, as far as it goes and it helps you to change the way you think. Okay, so it's cognitive development versus as a Native Hawaiian, what we need and what we think with or feel with is our na'au. And so as far as only Western medicine, we need both, being that we live in modern society. And, to feel complete, you must heal the mind and mend the heart. So you need two of these. And so being that I have gone through numerous treatment facilities, in and out of prison for the past 18 years, substance abuse treatment, life skills training, self-development classes, college courses, the whole 9 yards, the only thing that kept me whole and on the right path today is the fact that I was able to practice my culture while I was incarcerated. And so with that, I believe SB 2770 is very crucial for our population, being that, again, a lot of us are locked up. And so the only thing that I have a question about is the date. I noticed that it's 7/1/3000 to be in effect. I'm going to be dead by then, just letting you guys know. And this is not just for myself, but this is for my generation and my children after me. Yeah. So I would really appreciate if you guys would, act in this matter. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, let's go to the next bill. And then just as just to answer the last testifier, the date is just to say that we need further discussion. It's not a serious date. So thank you for that question. Yeah, she's laughing. Yeah, we all be in trouble.
Okay.
We all be in trouble by then.
Mahalo, Calamari. I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, next up is Senate Bill 2641. First up it is Kat Brady. Oh, okay.
I support this measure. Oh, Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons. Thank you for hearing this bill. I support this bill. I think programs that allow moms to bring their babies, it's really good because they get to bond. It's very difficult if they don't have that time. And expanding programs, especially for women, mental health, substance misuse, really, really important. I hope you can fund it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up on Zoom, Department of Public Safety.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Max Latani, Department of Public Safety. We'll stand on our written comments. Also like to ask that the committee consider deleting line 4, section 2, which includes community-based furlough programs. Being that this the funding would be appropriated to the judiciary. Judiciary does not run furlough programs. Furlough programs are operated out of the Department of Public Safety. So I think it would be a lot cleaner if that section is deleted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you again. So Women's Prison Project is in strong support of this measure. We know what the detrimental effects are for young children of having an incarcerated mother. And we know that 75 to 60% of the women in our prison here are mothers. And the majority had been custodial parents of their children. So if we want to reduce recidivism, because mothers are more engaged in programs where they're not worrying about where their children are, if we want to reduce recidivism and reduce the trauma to the children and keep those children out of the foster care system, then this is the approach to take. That we know that the majority of the women who are in prison are low-risk offenders, many of whom could be supervised by the court in community-based programs that could allow them to have their children with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers? If not, questions?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Aloha. I know I didn't write a testimony on this, but as far as you know, my background, I've been in the prison system, and I also would like to support this bill because I know that there is only one program, I believe, that brings children in and out, and it's like Kids Day. When my kids came to visit me, it's Kids Day, so it would be on holidays only. So this would be very beneficial for throughout their time instead of just during the holidays. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill. Senate Bill 3293. First up on Zoom, Department of Public Safety.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Deputy Director of Corrections. The Director apologized, he had to step out. We'll stand on our written testimony providing comments on this measure. We would ask you to please pay close attention to paragraph 2 in our testimony. We have some concerns regarding the funding mechanism. The funding goes to another agency, which is the judiciary, a different branch of government, yet we're responsible for the programs. I'll be available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Next up, it's Department of Taxation.
Good afternoon again. Ted Shirishi for the Department of Taxation. We stand on our written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it's Women's Prison Project.
Thank you. We're in strong support of this bill that would provide these vouchers for people being released from incarceration, particularly those who are custodial parents. However, we also have a concern about where it is placed and how the funding is located. We believe, as I think some departments do also, that this belongs in the Department of Human Services. And I believe in a previous bill, it was in that department, and the department had expressed a willingness to be able to manage that because they are the people who managed housing vouchers and childcare. So we strongly support the idea of having this voucher program, and we would ask that it be moved into the Department of Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Anyone else wishing to testify? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2637. First up, it is Department of Public Safety.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Tommy Johnson, Deputy Director for Corrections. We'll stand on our testimony regarding this measure. We already do provide offenders with some of the programs mentioned in the bill. We ask you just to take a look at our testimony. We further note that the increase in levels and program services for women would need to be supported by additional funding for the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it is the DHS.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Joseph Campos, Deputy Director for Department of Human Services, here on behalf of Director Betts. The Department of Human Services supports the measure's intent, offers comments, requests clarification, and defers to the Department of Public Safety. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. It's not Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you. We are strongly in support of this bill, and we would like to raise the issue of recidivism reduction, because we know that there's been a lot of discussion about recidivism rates throughout many of the bills that have been presented this year. One of the reasons that we strongly support this program is because the evaluation of the Fernhurst YWCA's work furlough program showed that the recidivism rate was 29% as opposed to 50-something for other people who were released from incarceration. And this is a good example of how we need to really look carefully at what interventions are working for what people. So we strongly support this. We believe that most of the women coming out of prison are going to have to support themselves. Many of them are going to be custodial parents trying to support a young family. And so it is imperative that they integrate back into the community in a way that allows them to develop work skills and work habits to be able to be in a job and keep a job. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is YWCA.
Hi, this is Jen Wilbur, the YWCA. We'll just stand on our testimony in strong support of this bill and appreciate the hearing it.
Thank you very much. Any other testifiers? If not, questions.
Aloha, it's me
go ahead.
again, Alicia
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm just going to be there and just stand behind this because I have gone through workflow program. And as far as it's stating to have more community-based, there is only, I think, two workflow programs for the women, and there are more for the men. So as for, and being that in society, women have lower pay. So even more so, we want to make sure that our women as mothers, daughters, even grandmothers, we have a lot of responsibility to go and get back into once we get released. And so providing programs for us women to flourish and even take care of ourselves, because many of us have even gone through domestic violence, right? And so we will be by ourselves at times and would need these programs for us. So I stand behind this bill as well. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2639. First up, it is Department of Public Safety.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Deputy Director for Corrections. We'll stand on our written testimony in support of the intent of this measure, but actually pay close attention to paragraph 2 and 3 of our testimony regarding our progress to address women's needs and to review national assessment instruments specifically for incarcerated women. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Next up it is Linda Rich, Women's Prison Project.
Thank you. We, of course, are strongly in support of this bill. We know that that a gender responsive, validated assessment tool is necessary to make a good and appropriate plan for reentry for women. We have heard the department's testimony that they are working on an assessment. And so our hope and our recommendation would be that if they are intending to validate their own instrument, that they would find a qualified researcher with experience in validating assessment instruments and retain that person to design and manage a research process with that is a clear process with a time frame for completion and implementation. And also that there be a report from them about their progress in that in the next year. So we strongly support this bill, and we support efforts to have a validated gender responsive assessment tool for women to be implemented in our prison system here to improve reentry planning and reduce recidivism. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testifiers?
Again, I stand behind this bill as well, being that I am working to get my degree in social work. I know that a needs assessment tool is very crucial as far as dealing with women and finding out exactly what their needs are, because like I mentioned before, we are mothers, daughters, grandmothers. We have been through many traumatizing things, and to find out exactly what is needed and what tools of intervention that they could use to implement and help the women to thrive in the community is very important. Mahalo for letting me share.
Thank you. Any other testifier? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2771. First up, it is Department of Public Safety.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Deputy Director for Corrections. This measure is similar to the previous measure you just heard. And in this measure, we provide information in our testimony regarding the ORAS PAT assessment tool. And we provide an approximate amount that we believe would be necessary in order to do the research to validate the ORAS assessment tool or any other assessment tool for female, specifically designed for female offenders. So we'd ask you to move this measure forward as a vehicle. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Women's Prison Project.
Thank you again. So I would like to just read a small piece out of my testimony. This is a statement from the United States Civil Rights Commission in its report to the President in 2020 called Women in Prison Seeking Justice Behind Bars. They stated the classification systems that are not calibrated for gender-specific characteristics have been shown to classify incarcerated women at higher security levels than necessary for the safety and security of prisons. This classification results in women serving more time in more restrictive environments than is necessary. Women who are classified at higher security levels may receive fewer programming opportunities, less community placement or reentry opportunities, which results in women serving more time in prison than would be required if they had access to and completed these programs. So we strongly support the implementation of a validated gender responsive pretrial assessment, risk assessment of women in our system. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testifiers?
In strong support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill. Senate Bill 3295, Department of Public Safety.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tommy Johnson, as Deputy Director for Corrections. We'll start our written testimony. I'd just like to make note that the provisions of this measure are similar to the duties and responsibilities that are for the Hawaii Correctional Systems Oversight Commission. And we believe this will be duplicative in nature. We'd ask you to please review our testimony closely. That's all I have. I'll be available for the questions you may have.
Thank you. Next up is Women's Prison Project.
Thank you. Yes, our testimony actually responds to what was just said in the previous testimony. This is not duplicative of the Corrections Oversight Commission. It was never intended to be. It was intended to be an implementation commission to ensure the implementation of recommendations from a previous workforce that reported back to the House in 2019, I believe it was, and their recommendations have not been implemented. The makeup of this is very different. It was intended to be an all-woman group that would attend to women's issues and implementation specifically to make reforms related to women in the prison system. The makeup of it is different. The intent of it is different. I would also like to point out that there have been other bills that have been heard. There was a bill in the House that placed this in the judiciary, and the original intent of this commission was that it would work with both the judiciary and with corrections. Part of the intent was to ensure that there's opportunity for diversion of women from the prison system into community-based programs with court supervision. And so that definitely involves the judiciary. So this was not intended to be an oversight commission for the similar to the one that is currently in existence. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that that's a big confusion that there is about what the intent of this implementation commission is.
Thank you. Any other testifier? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3294. First up, it's Department of Public Safety.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Deputy Director for Corrections. The Department of Public Safety just provides comments regarding this matter. We previously testified that we believe that these type of reentry planning circles will be best done in the community as a diversion before being committed to prison as part of judiciary supervision on probation or as part of community supervision with another agency. That's all I have. I'll be here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Next up is Women's Prison Project.
Yes, thank you. Well, we would be happy. We're in support of this bill, and we would be happy to see it used up front, not only in the prison system. It's been very valuable within the prison system, as DPS has acknowledged in previous testimony. The evaluations of it, which at this point includes 777 people who participated, found the process to be positive, to be healing, not only for the prisoner or the inmate, but for the family members, including the children. It's been a very useful process for people to be able to take responsibility for their behavior and seek reconciliation. It also has been a way of planning and ensuring that there is a support network around the person as he or she transitions out of prison. So we strongly support this measure. this program to continue within the prison, and we would certainly be happy to see it happen in the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kat Brady.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons in strong support of this measure. Lauren Walker, who's the restorative justice queen in Hawaii, she and I were on the phone and we actually talked about how to do a restorative justice circle process in the prison. And this has been amazing. Since 2005, we've been doing it. And it is so restorative. It is so transformative because it's a circle of people who actually help the person who requested the circle develop a plan for how they're going to act in the community, how they'll find a job, how they'll find a place to live. So it's really, really helpful. And when I first was talking to Lauren, I said, what happens when somebody comes out of prison and they're in Longs and they run into somebody who they robbed? What happens? And we started talking about, we should be having a circle so that people could actually come in and discuss what happened and how to move forward and past that. And as for Linda Rich's request about it being in the community, the most wonderful part of this is that when it starts in the prison, when we tell people after the circle, they get a whole packet of information about their plan, but then we tell them, if you're in the community like 2 or 3 months and you're kind of struggling, give us a call, we'll do a circle in the community. And we've actually done circles in churches with people who were released. So it is a really restorative, transformative process, and I can't speak highly enough for it. It's really terrific, and I hope that you pass this bill with funding because it's all been funded by private foundations to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testifiers?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Alicia Kaluhio Kalani again to speak in behalf of this. I stand before you today as one who has been in a huikahi circle. And I have been there. It was also facilitated by Judge Alms at the time with Lauren Walker. I had my family there. All I know is it worked. I haven't been incarcerated since 2016 of December. It was a different way of, as a kanakamole ho'oponopono of making things right. But as far as it being done with the means that we do have, as far as incarcerated women, having them come together and even my children and speak to us about what it is, where, the hurts and how we can make it better, and then planning it out. It is crucial. It is crucial to take these matters, because once you get out, it's not just your family. You have to go to work. There's so much responsibilities that was left behind that we were incarcerated and didn't, we haven't been able to do. So we lost that. And so again, with those programs, with the circle, with everything, we need everything to help us to press on. And a lot of it is to do with our support system. And like Lauren Walker and Kat Brady and the Women Prison Project, this is what they want. They just want to help. And if you guys can have that, support this bill and create this space for us to heal as women. And like Max Otani or Tommy Johnson said earlier, to do it before it happens, well, it's for incarcerated women, and we need to do it inside as well. You need to heal from the inside and out. So it's very important that we get this done, this passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3085. First up, it is Department of Defense.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, committee members. I'm Major General Kenneth Howard, the Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii Department of Defense. The department stands on its written testimony in support of Senate Bill 3085, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. I'll be available for questions, but I also have Lieutenant Colonel Lloyd Phelps on. He's a department's Judge Advocate General, so he can answer any technical legal questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Any other testifiers? If not, questions, Representative Peruso.
One question for General Hara. So I noticed this bill going through, and I also noticed that there wasn't much conversation about it. And as I read it, I've never read a code of military justice before. So I was struck by the control of officers over service members. And I'm wondering, do you see this new code as moving us more in the direction of a structure that respects the autonomy of service members? I'm concerned about like the totality of control. I mean, if you read the document, I guess I've never had to grapple with the system of justice that's, used with service members. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because
Sure.
yeah.
So the Hawaii Code of Military Justice existed previously. This is really an update from the early 1980s. I think it was 1982. And it hasn't been adjusted for years, right, for decades. What we did is, if you look at the current code, and then also the Uniform Code of Military Justice is what the active duty forces are bound by. It's modeled by that. There's also there was a study done, and there was a model that was recommended for states to adopt. So we brought on a project officer, a lawyer that, I think it took about a year to do all of the research and put this through. We coordinated with the judicial branch, and then with both on the Senate side and the House side. And we truly believe it's kind of the basic thing to ensuring good order and discipline in the military. So this is pretty much the same thing that all of the states have adopted.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3329. First up, it is Uniform Law Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lane Shetterly. I'm an attorney in Oregon and a member of the Uniform Law Commission. It was my privilege to chair the drafting committee of the Uniform Public Expression Protection Act, which would be enacted in Hawaii by this bill. We appreciate your consideration of it today. I do stand on the testimony that we have submitted. I would just say briefly that this bill is a great service to your constituents to protect them from vexatious and meritless lawsuits and give them a tool to fight back when they are victimized by such lawsuits. And I'm pleased to say, I believe that this is a non-appropriation bill. So I hope that this is one that you can speedily move forward, and we thank you for your consideration of it. I am available for questions and would be happy to answer any that come my way.
Thank you very much. Next up is Commission to Promote Uniform Laws.
Aloha, I'm Elizabeth Kent. And just briefly, I support this because I believe that robust public participation builds a strong community. I'm also a big fan of the First Amendment. So I urge your support of this uniform law. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is ACLU of Hawaii.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, committee members. My name is Wookie Kim. I'm here on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii, and we strongly support this bill. We at the ACLU have a strong interest in this bill because freedom of expression is among the core rights protected by both the US and Hawaii constitutions. Unfortunately, SLAPs, which are strategic lawsuits against public participation, have presented an increasingly significant threat to the people's right to freedom of expression. and especially to those people and organizations who are under-resourced or marginalized. Hawaii already has an anti-SLAPP law, which is codified at Chapter 634F, but it just isn't broad or strong enough to adequately address the problems that SLAPPs pose. And we know this from experience, and as Professor Antolini will probably explain, a few years ago, a SLAPP was initiated against a group of environmental advocates who plainly were exercising their First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And when they sought to rely on Hawaii's existing anti-SLAPP law, the court concluded that their conduct was not protected by the law. So we filed an amicus brief in that lawsuit pointing out that their conduct was squarely within the core of the First Amendment. So long story short, this bill would update and modernize Hawaii's existing anti-SLAPP law and implement a broad, clear, and effective framework, of course, created by a nonpartisan, nonprofit Uniform Law Commission. So we ask that the committee pass this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Malama Pupukea Waimea.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. My name is Denise Antolini. I'm the volunteer president of Malama Pupukea Waimea. And as some of you know, I also teach law at the university. And as Mr. Kim just mentioned, our organization was at the bitter end, I would say, of a SLAPP suit. So this law, proposed uniform law, is a unique opportunity for Hawaii to modernize a statute that was adopted by the legislature in 2002. As this uniform law is in line with the original intent and really fully effectuates that intent, but also provides Hawaii the ability to have persuasive law from other jurisdictions as they adopt this uniform law. So it does a couple of things: modernizes the law, provides broader protection for public expression, provides well-balanced and fair procedural mechanisms to expedite resolution of these kinds of cases, and it'll put Hawaii in the forefront of this issue nationwide. We really appreciate your hearing this bill. It's a non-appropriation, but the conversation is really important. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Any other testifiers? If not, questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3372. First up, it is DAGS.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Yamashita, and members of the committee. Chris Kinimaka, Public Works Administrator, on behalf of State Comptroller Otaguro, DAGS stands on a written testimony in support. Mahalo.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3075. First up, it is DCCA.
Aloha. My name is Iris Ikeda. I am the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions, and we are in support of this measure, this administration measure. And we asked for 3 amendments for your consideration. And we also addressed the concerns that had been brought up in 2 other committees regarding the bill's subject potential conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Attorney General's Office.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke and members of the committee. Deputy Attorney General Tammy Kanashiro. While we believe the bill as currently drafted would withstand a subject title challenge because the proposed amendments are connected and related to the franchise tax, we also understand DCCA is proposing certain amendments to the bill, including the removal of Section 2 of the bill. The Department of the Attorney General does not have any legal concerns with the current amendments proposed by the DCCA.
Thank you. Next up, it's Department of Taxation.
Thank you, Chair. Tetsuya Ishii for the Department of Taxation. We stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. Lastly, Tax Foundation.
Thank you, Chair Luke, members of the committee. Tom Yamachiku from Tax Foundation. We do still have concerns about the single subject requirement. We don't think that the DCCA amendment fixes them. The problem is that we've got money potentially coming out of the income tax collections, which would impact perhaps, adjustments that this or other legislative committees might do if they think the take from the income tax isn't enough. That's what we're concerned about.
Thank you. Any other testifier? If not, question Representative Kobayashi.
For DCCA, how does that $2 million figure change over time? Or does it have to?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the question is whether the $2 million changes over time.
Yes, and does it have to?
We would like it to change over time, meaning we would like more of the franchise tax paid for by our banks for our supervision. But that amount is actually in the statute.
I mean, if you need that money to change, you could put a formula into the statute.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be, we would like that. But we haven't, for right now, the $2 million is adequate for the number of institutions that we currently supervise. But as time goes on and banking is becoming much more complicated than it was even 10 years ago when I started. And so we are spending a lot more resources, both in learning these different areas of banking and as well as examining and conducting ongoing supervision. So we actually are using that $2 million for its purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the last bill, Senate Bill 1105. It is DCCA.
Sorry, I forgot. My name is Iris Akita. I am the Commissioner for the Division of Financial Institutions for the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. This is also an administration bill carryover from last year. And we are supporting this measure with two amendments, one for the effective date and one to clarify that victims can be deceived both by the individual mortgage loan originator and the company. So they should be able to get compensated by both the individual and by the company. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any other testifier? If not, questions? If not, let's recess for decision making. Good afternoon, Committee on Finance will reconvene for decision-making on our 2:30 agenda. First up, it is Senate Bill 514, Senate Draft Plan. This will be deferred until Tuesday end of calendar. Next up is Senate Bill 2475, Senate Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as a HD1, reverting back to the SD1 version and technical non-substantive amendments. And the effective date will be upon approval. Any discussion? Not, please take a vote.
Okay, voting on Senate Bill 2475 SD2, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye, Representative Bronco.
Aye.
Eli. Excuse Holt. Excuse Iligan.
Aye.
Kobayashi. Martin.
Aye.
Ishimoto. Aye. Caruso.
Aye.
Sayama.
Aye.
Ham. Aye. Todd. Aye. Wahlberger.
Aye.
McDermott, excuse. Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3236, Senate Draft 2, House Draft Plan. Recommendation is to pass as a pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take a vote.
The members voting on Senate Bill 3236 SD2 HD1. Recommendation is to pass as is, noting the excused absence of Representatives Eli, Holt, and McDermott, and that will be throughout the rest of this agenda. Are there any reservations? Any no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3221 and Senate Bill 2731. They will be deferred because these two items were included in our House budget. Next up is Senate Bill 915, Senate Draft 2, House Draft Plan. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay.
For 3221 and 2731.
Deferred, right? Okay.
915.
Okay, members, we're voting on Senate Bill 915 SD2 HD1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any reservations or no's? Adopted.
Okay, next up is Senate Bill 2770, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take a vote.
Okay, members voting on Senate Bill 2770 SD1 HD1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any reservations? And no. Adopted.
Okay, next up is Senate Bill 2641, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take a vote.
Okay, voting on Senate Bill 2641, Senate Draft 2 HD1. Recommendation to pass as is. Any reservations? No. Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3293, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take a vote.
Okay, voting on Senate Bill 3293, Senate Draft 2 HD2 as is. Are there any reservations or no's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2637, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2637 SD1 HD2 as is. Any reservations? No's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2639, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2639 HD2 as is. Any reservations? No's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2771, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, voting on Senate Bill 2771 HD1 SD1 as is. Any reservations? No's? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3295, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
is Senate Bill 3295 SD1 HD2 as is. Any reservations? Noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3294, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3294 SD2 HD1 as is. Reservations or noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3085, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3085 SD2 HD2 as is. Any reservations or noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3329, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Senate Bill 3329 SD1 HD2 as is. Any reservations? Noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3372, House Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Senate Bill 3272 SD1 HD2 as is. Any reservations? Noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 3075, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, including DCCA amendments and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Okay, Senate Bill 3075 SD2 HD1 with amendments. Any reservations? Noes? Adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1105, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 1105 SD2 HD1 as is. Any reservations? Noes? Adopted.
Thank you. And with that, we are concluding our second agenda and the hearing is adjourned.